That is, are you? All right, good evening, everybody. Yes, thank you so much for tuning in. I think we're live and want to welcome everybody this evening to have an intimate, easygoing, deep, broad discussion about what it means to be a man in this day and age. My name is Jabu Zwani. I'm a mindset development specialist and the founder of the Mindset Development Institute. I also do wear a hat as the vice president of the Professional Speakers Association and also operate, in many hats, pastor, also non-executive board member, and just one of those people that really enjoys being part and parcel of the change that he would love to see in his country, beloved country of South Africa. We have incredible men with us this evening. And without actually doing too much injustice in trying to introduce them, I think it would be great for a man to speak from their own heart and explain themselves. Because, sometimes you may think that you're doing a good job introducing a man and you are kind of like, letting, you're not really bringing out the thing about themselves that they want to bring out. I'm a father of 5, been married for quite some time now. Father and actually in a mixed family, and I think it's important for us to be here together and to talk about some of these challenges as we're raising our families, as we try and make sense of being a man, as we try and make sense of our history as South Africans, especially African South Africans with the history that we've got, and also trying to pass on certain things to our children. Here we are having these discussions. So I'm going to start on my right here. I think it's top left of Katleo. So I'm going to start with you. On my left, please do introduce yourselves, and then we're going to end up with the wisdom in the room.
Hi, Jabu. My name is Katlaho Tijani. I'm a businessman. I have been a businessman for quite a while now. I, well, mostly work in the gambling industry. Um, Also, I dabble in entertainment. I am a lawyer by profession, but chose to go into business. So that's my background. Also, a father. Um, I must say that I'm a father to more children that I've actually given birth to. Because as the African saying goes, every child is my child. So I feel quite comfortable among, men who are fathers, men who are brothers, men of experience, and I'm quite happy to be here and chat to everybody about what is it that drives men. What is it that it is to be a man in this day and age? And as you have said earlier, the challenges that come with one being an African man, the background, the challenges in terms of culture and other issues, but also in terms of, the age gaps between our brothers, because brotherhood is really about everybody. It's not a age-related issue. Thanks, Jamu.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Now, thank you so much for introducing yourself. I'm really looking forward to learn quite a bit from you. I quite enjoyed hearing a bit from everybody the last time. I unfortunately could not partake, but I'm excited to be here. Okay, Bokan, over to you, brother.
Well, I'm just simple. I'm just simple. I'm just Bokang, nothing fancy to write home about. I am an internal audit. I'm also a father, married, and most of the time I spent within internal audit. I lead a team in some public service organization, which is a multi-billion rand organization. That takes a whole lot of my time. And then I also do some volunteering work with the Institute of Internal Auditors in some of their committees, particularly public sector committee, which I'm currently at as an internal auditor. I also do some few things on the side, a mini businessman. I don't want to call it like that, a mini in a way that let me call it side hustle sort of things that I'm doing at the current moment, just to be able to keep up with the whole demands of things that are going on. But all in all, I'm a family man. That is where I spend a whole lot of time, myself and my children and the family that I have. At least for now, I still have a small family, only two kids at the moment, so two little boys. So I'm raising also many men that I'm trying to be example to growing up. But that is me in a nutshell, host. I don't want to take the whole time indicating some other things. I don't have a lot of heads like you do, Jabu. So I will stick to that part. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. You are doing an important job. I think I wear so many hats, but because there's one way to survive. Like I didn't. It's
I
like
agree with
you
you on that.
grabbing here and you grabbing
You
here.
grab
So
it,
if you can,
you wear
if
hats
you,
and you wear caps. Sometimes you just wear anything that comes there, even if it's a piece of cloth. Yeah, you wear it.
exactly the point. No, excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. And then we're gonna end up with. I believe you probably are the youngest, hence the wisdom in the room.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, but I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to learning a lot. My name is Tatlana, otherwise known as Alan. I go by the same name, Shadu, and I'm a mechanical engineer. Really, that is really what I currently do. Hopefully, when I get older, I'll have as many heads as well. But I'm really excited to be amongst men who really want to talk men stuff, so I can also learn. I'm a married man with two young ones, 2 year old and 4 months. So I'm going through the most right now. So just as we go through the conversation, be take it easy on me. Um, yeah, but I'm looking forward to learn more than anything. That's it about me.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, let's get into it. Last week there was some interesting discussions we had, and I think one of that was the whole issue of the expectations that society has on the men. And it was actually coincidental that at the time, as I was listening in, I was actually busy writing an article, which I submitted to some publications around should men redefine masculinity for themselves. And I think one of the reasons why there was such a fascinating discussion for me is because I was wondering who exactly is the society? And if men are part of society, then to what extent do we carry the responsibility, or rather we carry the blame, if I went for want of a better word, for those expectations, and is it so that we find things the way that they are, that men should be like this and like that, in spite of everything that has changed in the last couple of years, and we just accept and feel like victims and accept that these are the expectations that we've got to live up to, and if you can't live up to them, it impacts our mental health, it impacts our confidence, it impacts the way that we perceive ourselves, it impacts the way that we allow, or rather what we allow people to perceive us as, and then sort of live that in a victim mode? Or do we have anything to do with the change that is potentially healthy, that can reposition the way that we see ourselves and the impact that we have on society? And I think that is the question that I'd like us to start off with, starting with Ndate Hore. Are we victims, and can we do anything about it? Who is to blame for these expectations, and why is it that they are impacting us to the degree that they have, to the point where we have high suicide? There's a whole issue of gender-based violence in response to our own inadequacies, and everything else that is associated, isolation of men, loneliness that comes with that, and all of that. I mean, help us.
Yeah, thanks, Jabu. Look, I think the issue of manhood comes from socialization. When you are born, you grow up. There's a certain way boys are raised. There's a certain way we talk to boys as compared to women. Even in our own families, if you have a boy and a girl, there's a way you talk to your boy as opposed to your girl. There are things that you say to your boy child that as they grow up, they begin to emulate that. They also, in terms of, just looking at how men in the village behave. So that type of socialization, I think, is the one that carries how men in our society ultimately become into adulthood. But also I suppose at adulthood, you still carry, your childhood socialization. You also, learn from other men as you grow up. And these expectations as society, and you ask a very important question: who is society? We suppose we are society, because how I'm socialized, how I'm grown, the responsibilities I'm given from my own family as a boy child into adulthood, that carries how I treat my own family, where I want to take them. But within that, you also have, cultural issues that define how men must move. For an example, you spoke about suicide and challenges in men. I think it weighs heavily because let's take an example of a man who loses a job and all his upbringing has been, you have to be the breadwinner, you have to be the father, you are the leader. And sometimes when people, or men in particular, feel like they are losing traction, they are not providing the expectations that society or even their own families put on them, they feel they have no way out. And I suppose this brotherhood of four that is here, we need to start, leaning on one another, caring about ourselves, so that if I have problems, I know I have somebody I can talk to who will not judge me, but who would possibly understand where I'm coming from. assist in the feelings or lack of accomplishment or the expectations that I personally feel that I cannot accomplish. But if you speak to somebody, I suppose other men who have been through the same situations and overcome them, it helps. But yeah, I think for me, the issues come with socialization. And if we are unable to manage them as we grow and rely on other men, they may become too much for us. Yeah.
On that very same note, before I go on to the next person, Dr. Katlo, I mean, what can we do? What do you think we what can we do, especially talking to the generation that's upcoming? And part of the reason why I think this is an important question is just the stats that are coming out. The fact that, for example, men or children, young boys before the age of 12 are likely to experience hardship where they're perceived to have far more tolerance for hardship. Things like they went to school with dirty clothes. I know what that is like myself. And they are the ones that are more likely to go hungry at school without anybody necessarily caring about whether they're hungry or not. I have experienced that growing up in the Free State, in the poor area myself. And as a result, there tends to be a lot more the perception that boys are far more tolerant of hardship than girls. So I'm just thinking about it now, like, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do to start to reshape the way that boys are perceived in the society and how the society perceives boys?
Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent question, Jamu. For me, and I'll give you an example with myself. I was quite a troubled youngster growing up, but I suppose what helped me has always been in the company of older men that have gone through the same, route that I have gone. And when they explain the situations and how they've triumphed over that, it helps. But I think also for young men, and you spoke about youngsters, age of 12, I think we need to be able to create our own role models. In our own families, our uncles, our fathers, our brothers must be our own role models, but it gives a responsibility upon us as older men to talk to the youngsters about the experiences that we have. Let me give you an example. I'm actually quite an ardent biker, so I bike a lot. And one of the quotes about biking is that the best thing that an old biker can do for a young biker is to teach a young biker to be an old biker. Because, in the biking fraternity, you have a lot of accidents, youngsters die and all that. But you do have older bikers who have survived all that, and they can, share the experiences as how they have come to that. So the responsibility really is also upon us as older men, not only because of age, but because of the experience, and we can actually impart that and share with the youngsters, but also treating youngsters as adults, because they have their mind of their own and they can think for their own. So if we give them the tools on how to survive, because sometimes it's just an issue of self-confidence, that you can sit with a youngster and help him to be self-confident. And from the self-confidence, you can see a whole lot of other issues coming out. Excellence in academia, excellence in sports, just from sitting somebody who understands and can give them the impetus, even if it's just confidence. Yeah, but I think there's a responsibility amongst us to talk to youngsters, to bring them into the fold and tell them the truth about life as we see it, as we experience it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that response. I mean, if you are out there and you're watching, please don't forget to subscribe, to follow us, and so we can be giving notices in the future of any events that are coming up. Gentlemen, you've been hearing the questions that I've been passing on to Ndate, but I want to add a little bit of context to that in terms of the questions I want to put through to you guys. But traditionally, there are basically four different, what can I say, elements, or rather KPIs, key performance indicators, or areas by which men are judged, right? We have success, we've got intelligence, we've got positions of authority, and physicality itself. I mean, these are predominantly the four, and then if you are lucky, of course, and then they'll throw in a little bit of looks in there and a bit of humor in there, and then at least you got a better chance of, securing the most beautiful woman in the room, or whatever the case might be. I'm just wondering now, like in terms of your own pressures, have you, let me start with you, young brother, Pokang, not Pokang, Tabang, right?
Tetlana.
I don't know why I'm thinking
Yes.
Tabang. Let me start off with you. Have you dealt with those kind of pressures? Have you dealt with the pressures to succeed, to be intelligent, to have some kind of position of importance? Well, I've got my husband, and he manager, and he's a manager's father's shop. As long as he's a manager, it's fine. He could be managing whatever. The position of authority, of course, lastly, that whole factor of physical prowess, height and physicality and all that. How are you handling those if you've experienced them? And is that your experience? Are you part of that research? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think one of the things that was spoken about last week was with regards to expectations, the pressure of, and I think the gentleman made a silly example, or an easy example of going to a restaurant and the bill is just already passed to you. And I mean, as a man, you are expected to pay the bill. And I've like, especially after graduation from varsity, I've had to deal with that a lot. Whereas my female friends would want to go out with me more than when I was still in varsity. And at some point, I didn't understand what that was about. But I think one thing that Mr. Katlaho spoke about is the ability to speak out, right? And as men, we don't do that a lot, right? And I had to learn that and exercise that, but also learning that from other men who have dealt with the same pressures and just finding out how they've dealt with it. So myself being open to hearing from what other people are saying and being able to practice. One of the things that we do as men is keep quiet, right? When we are not happy, when things catches us offside, and I don't know whether it's again back to that society thing. I actually wanted to hear from the gents on the table, maybe a bit later when you're done with your questions, but for some reason I'm in Nagimopedi, right? And and I think that also just adds to the idea of, as men, we don't blab out, right? And I think that's just the societal pressure on its own. And then when we come across other pressures, when you don't succeed and people treat you otherwise, you're not able to say. I know, like, I think I got married when I was quite young, right? Or I don't know what's the right age. And you could see how my friends start talking to me, like, dude, you're still young. I got married at 27. They're like, why you did that? You know? And I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? Right now I've got two girls, right? My firstborn is a girl, my secondborn is a girl. And every time I'm asked the question, is your firstborn a girl? Is your secondborn a girl? I say yes. You can see the frown on people's faces. And I'm like, what is that about? Like, every time, I promise you, every single time, it could be one of my someone I thought is my closest friend, but the frown on their face just makes me think, did I give birth to a wrong gender, or what's going on? So some of those, but at the end of the day, I think it's the ability to talk about those things with the people that you encounter. Obviously waiting for the right moment to say, why did you frown earlier when you asked me about my two daughters and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think for me the biggest thing is talk. But as men, I know that's not our greatest gift.
Sure.
Yeah.
But how do you handle the pressures, for example, of like you were saying now with your, with the girls expecting you to pay? How do you, on your own, how do you handle the pressure to have to be more successful than women, especially given sort of the level playing field that a place like South Africa now is now becoming more and more on the corporate sector, where your wife is likely to get a better job than you, likely to progress even faster than you on the corporate ladder. I mean, how do you orient yourself, for that?
Yeah. I think for that it's because I'm married, and they say or it is like that when you're married you guys are one. I think again back to the idea of communication and actually being able to do what you can do. You spoke about redefining masculinity for yourself. I think it's important that my wife knows what I can do, and what I can't do. The other thing is asking her for expectations on me, right? Because if I don't know her expectations on me, then I go on my own tangent. Can't she's expecting a Lamborghini, and I come back with a Renault, and it doesn't work. So I think the idea of getting feedback from the other side, it's for me is always important, even with friendships. Just to say, gents, we are here. We are hosting a braai. Who's bringing what? Am I hosting the whole of it? If yes, then it's not happening. So always just getting feedback from the other side, and being clear about that. I think is one way I've managed to handle the pressures, and also just articulating what I can and what I can do.
When you're speaking about the whole bringing me to the bride thing, it takes me back to my first time in the city, coming from the Free State, and then you start hanging around with these white guys, and then I get invited to this bride, right?
Yeah.
And then now I just walk up with my empty hands, and they're like, "Where's your meat?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Where's my meat?" I learned the hard way that, hey, my hoa, you must bring your own meat, Baba.
Bruh, yeah, you just don't show up.
Tell your friends not to call me, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Tell your friends not to call me. I'm gonna come empty-handed.
Bro, I still come empty-handed, especially now that I'm Muruti. I just use my pasta card in here.
That's a good one. That's a good one. No one's gonna kick away a pasta. No one's gonna.
You start collecting tithe there, 10% of each and everyone's meat.
Exactly.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
No, but that's awesome, man. I like what you're saying about the importance of learning to articulate your own thoughts and then to communicate and to renegotiate these social pacts. Because at the end of the day, as Natajan was saying earlier on, I mean, we have the role to redefine these things. So, Tiwokan, you've been listening in. I'm sure a lot is going on in your head, so feel free to jump in.
I'm sure you're going to ask me less difficult questions now.
No, I'm not. No more questions now. Let's just allow the conversation to flow. I think we've given enough on the table. Let's just start biting it and then putting it together. So, over to you. What are your thoughts about what we said so far?
You know what? From the beginning of building upon the pressure questions that we were talking about last week, and talking about the 4 elements that you have indicated, which I think, in my view, since you have put them like that, they do make sense. They do create those corners of pressure that we get as men. But I think, personally speaking from myself, I think there's quite an effect on the background of an individual, of the perspective of society, what they see. I think you from Free State, I'm from Northwest, Western Transvaal, which is quite a bit of a different area. I think it is a fact. You spoke earlier about our African men history. Some of us, we were not that privileged to have a man in a family. You might find out that you're in a family of your mother, your aunt, your grandmother, and all of those things, which was my case with me. I think I had an uncle or two, but majority of my family were females. So if you look at it, it creates that sort of the culture and the expectations that you get, you don't necessarily get them from another man, you get them rather from another woman. And in that sort of a situation, some mothers or aunts, they will try to instill their perspective of life. And it has its own advantages in a way that sometimes they don't put you under that 4 element pressures like the men will put you. They will introduce things like compassion, you must be loving, you must be allowed to do all of those sort of things. But I think out of all, there's always a pressure to succeed. You don't have to, personally, I don't think I have to succeed more than somebody, more than yourself or Rodman next to me. All I want to see is that, do I succeed on my own targets? Am I improving in accordance to what I wanted to achieve? So I put pressure on that particular element a lot. And then I try to survive through it in a way that I believe that all men must have some sort of faith, belief, whatever it is there that can be able to resonate at. So if you have that sort of a target to say, you know what, I want to be able to self-improve from one step to another according to my individual plans, it reduces that sort of a pressure. And then you can be able to put a pillar on the faith to say, you know, there must be some sort of a destiny or something that has to do with myself. If things that are terrible happen to me, they'll probably happen for good reason in the long term. I know because we are humans, we are short-sighted. When something bad happens, we start to worry. I'm overweight. I'm not getting success. At my job, I think they're advantaging other women just because I have that other male organ. So it creates those sort of challenges in all over areas that you'll come to find out that ourselves as society are creating a lot of things. And I want to answer straight and say, most of those things, we men create those sort of pressures on ourselves. If you look at history, that's why they used to say it's a man's world. It because that we had those sort of expectations. I'll make an example. Personally, I have not been exposed to same-sex schools, but I have a view to say, you know what, I'm not even sure that I will take my sons to the boys-only school because of what happens there. Those pressures to say, I have to be better than this particular person, it creates those sort of need for that person who wants to be better to have to make the other one less inferior. To say, for me to be higher than you, you have to be low. And that's where you get up those sort of bullying mentality. And most of the time they focus on that. You are not successful enough. You are nothing nowhere. You are even overweight or underweight. And you look at all of those sort of things, they create an overall thing to say, have you seen John Cena? Why can't you look like John Cena? And you'll be wondering to say, how am I going to do that? And some people will tell, you are too short for my liking. And you're thinking, why can I get a surgeon who can do some leg extension for myself? So those sort of all of those sort of pressures together, they come to cluster you and follow you as an individual, particularly when you try to make friendship and go around with other colleagues. But for me personally, I have always had that thing to say, you know, when you started from the bottom, you can always go higher. So when you started low, there's only one direction, upward. Even if you are not going that fast, it's you are going somewhere. So it creates that confidence that you spoke to say, you know what, I'm succeeding on my own. But the main thing that I think we men as the society have created to punish ourselves is those high expectations, particularly on the 4 elements that you say. Always someone want to be more successful than another person. And like you say, we sometimes do it to get the most favorite, to be the most favorite in the room, to get attention of ladies. But I want to tell you, my wife also is adding to me because sometimes expectations are like, I'm not the Holy Ghost, I'm just Boka. That they will be a lot of things. That's where communication that we have spoken about. But for me, I think the most important thing that we need to learn as men is to say, we must be able to appreciate and embrace failure, you know, as men, understand that we are human and we can fail. And out of all failures, we can be able to learn a lot of things. Then when we succeed in the future, it will have been the lesson of those failures. But now that you have mentioned that there's so many suicides, there's so many abuses in the homes, there's so many stress, this unemployment is so high, and all of those sort of things. And all of those four aspects come to effect. Like, for instance, if you are unemployed, you're already down on three of those aspects.
Sure.
Even when you look so good, they will say, this man doesn't look that good. And there will be somebody that you know, man, I should be looking better than this guy just because they work, they get the favorite in the street. So there's always those sort of multiple elements that we create as men in society.
Yeah.
And most of it is men. I think when I have a younger sister, I want to control who he dates. I just don't want to see them date Jack and Jill. I look at the four elements. Hey, what type of nephews and nieces am I going to have with this type of guy? Is he tall enough? Is he successful enough? And it's in the DNA to be able to see those sort of things. But in a nutshell, I believe that ourselves as men are creating those sort of things. I think it's up to us to understand. And another challenge that I personally think we had went through, our history on its own, being in a society where mostly we are divided family. Mommy is at working somewhere there by the kitchen or something. If she's lucky, she'll be a nurse. And my father is somewhere 500 kilometers at least doing something that I don't know what they're doing. I hardly see them. I don't even know the job of a father in a life of a young child who's less than 8 years. Those sort of elements create those sort of gap and create a uselessness. I think for now, that is at least my perspective. It looks like now we are getting more and more present fathers. If that it's up to us to be able to change the narrative and be able to put it on our children, both males and females. Like you say now, I think I like the example that you say to say, if you're a female, you have more chances of success than a boy child these days. And even if you look at when they talk about the statistics, there are more women that graduate from universities than boys. Boys go prison cells, the women goes to the street and then goes to become what it is. So that's sort of a historical setup. It can be a big factor that we need to fight as men together to say, show other men to say, you know what, in a family, a man has a job. From a child, taking care of a child growing up, I think now the children will realize to say, you know what, in the society, I cannot put myself to say, I must just succeed, get a better job, and leave a big gap at our families. And will say, you know what, when I have a better job, I'll buy you a bigger house. I will not bring you a quid like you Satlana. I'll probably bring you a Porsche. You see, then we think at some point we can be able to throw money at things, and in the future, what happens is that we have that divided more of a society that is more of a materialistic rather than human and personal at a low level. That is why you will find out for you, it becomes a pressure. The bigger the car, the better you are in the community. Whether you are a bad man, whether you beat people, whether you abuse your wife, it doesn't matter. As long as you can buy a Porsche, it looks like it's success. So those sort of things, challenges that put pressure on us as men, in my personal view, in a little experience, which are the first things that I think we need to be able to draw ourselves away. And I still believe that we men can be able to do that as and on our own, to be able to teach that and unlearn the old way that were breaking us and try to get the new ways where we can become real societal leaders and partners rather than trying to be able to say, hey, only. Otherwise, so these sort of things, I think on the conversation there, I think that we need to consider. But guess what? I still have years to go. Maybe there are positives and negatives of these sort of things. But for now, that is just what I think. It's
Awesome.
a perspective. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, I mean, great point that you've made there. Just really about learning from our failures and taking lessons from there. And again, talking about redefining. And I think I want to just take this question back to Tejan. Do you think that, or rather, let me say, to what extent does the fact that men are measured on so many visible elements, success, visible, position of authority, visible, physical stature, talk about the whole issue of height. Many people get shocked when they see me because apparently I look taller on the screen than I do in real life. So like, oh wow, you're short. You're much shorter than we thought you were. I mean, I've heard it here in the country. I've heard it overseas, and I always wonder, like, what do I look like on the screen that everybody thinks I'm so much taller?
I know they say you are zooming yourself on the screen.
I mean, this is the funny thing, is that people have that, and I don't understand where they get that from. But I think I understand where that comes from. Hence, this particular question: do you think the emphasis on the physical attributes of men as a way of describing what it means to be a man takes away from us being able to define invisible, crucial components such as a man's character, value systems, and all of these factors that in the end actually are, I believe, are part of the reason why we even have GBV? How much pressure does it put on men to take time to actually look within, figure out who they are, who they want to be, the type of men that they want to be, outside of these four components, which seem to be the mainly how we are, our values measured in society?
Yeah, no, Javi, you're quite right. The pressures are always there. And I'll give you an example. I'm a short, stout man, and tall ladies like reminding me that I'm a short, stout man, and I always respond that Sol Kesner is also short. But
yes.
So your physical attributes do play a role, and I think it's because of how people perceive us in society. But I've always maintained that before you are a boy or a man, you are a human being, and you have talents, you have gifts, and if we were to emphasize and retrain our brains to first emphasize and hone our talents and gifts, being a man is really, to be honest, it's a biological factor. Yeah, it's just that God decided men will look like that, women will look like that. But before that, you are a human being. And I think if we, as I said earlier, if we get to where we concentrate on people's talents, because even in success, you are not successful because you are a man. You are a successful man. But you are not successful partly because you are a man. The expectations are that if I go to my village in Putarichaba in Kwakwa, and there's a mokete there, nobody has to ask who's going to slaughter the cow. It's obvious. It can't be Rachad. It just can't be. It has to be us. So in society, in any event, I think there are certain expectations and obligations that go with men, because that's how society has always been. From time immemorial, men needed to go out to the field, to hunt. Even in our past, that's how townships came about, because men were taken from their home places to come and work in the mines and all that. And you can hear from that, it was men who were brought to Johannesburg, to work in the mines and all that, because of their physical attributes. Naturally and biologically, men have attributes of strength. Therefore, you use the strength for you to get that. But it does not necessarily mean that men, in my view, that men have a particular different outlook to life, or even a particular intelligence because they are men. I've come across women, in fact, in my family, I have women who are much stronger than men. If I can tell you, if I were into a fight, I go into a fight in the streets, there are some men in my family that I would not call first. There's a lady that I would call first to come help me out.
You don't want to embarrass yourself.
No,
That's a good
Tabo.
one.
Wait, Tabo. Amanda, man. So,
Yeah.
but really, in a nutshell, Jabu, I think we need to find space in unlocking men's potential, not from a point of societal expectations, because that expectations have always been there, and we know what it leads to. I mean, you spoke about it, Bokan spoke about it, the pressures that leads to suicide, that lead to, even maladies in life. Some people as men, if they feel they are not successful as compared to others, then they go into other things. I feel that I cannot have the same money as somebody else. What do I do then? Go into crime. But it is not necessarily that men are prone to crime. It's that we need to reshift, or rather recalibrate how we think as men and think about what is essential. What comes easy to me? Am I an artist? Let me concentrate on that, because I'll be a great artist that happens to be a man. Other things are always there, but it appears that we emphasize, or we put too much emphasis on the physicality, on the intelligence, on authority, on the money aspect. But if you really look at all those things are actually universal to anybody. It is how you actually put the effort into your craft, into what you want to be. So men, in my view, need to get in touch with who they are. The last time we spoke about crying, I was the one emphasizing men must khalid matot. But all I'm saying is that you need to know who you are, because once you know who you are, it is easier for others to accept you, and you can shine, as it were. But pressure will always be there. It's just how we respond to them and how we train our boy children, including girl children, in terms of how to behave, because a leader can be anybody, and leadership is not defined by the gender or manhood or womanhood. Yeah, in a nutshell.
No, fantastic. No, that's great, Papa. I really appreciate that. And especially the whole issue of the fact that we are human beings before we are men and before we're women. And there's certain traits of being a human being. Part of that being, of course, the fact that we are emotional, or we have emotions in the same way that women have. We feel pain in the same way that women have. And then it affects us similarly as far as psychologically, physically, emotionally, and things like that. And I love that. Or how I'm successful. I'm a successful man. I'm a successful human being who happens to be a man. I'm not successful because I am a man, which I think for me is a very powerful line. Because you join my line. Put it up there somewhere and say somebody unknown once said, I gotta go back to word.
Yeah, man.
Wise man once said. Yeah.
Wise man once said. So funny when that happens. But just going back to you then, Sehlana.
Sure.
You've been listening in and you've been hearing this. Do you what are your thoughts? I mean, what are your thoughts about the fact that the emphasis on the physical traits of a man takes away from us as men, focusing on the inner, invisible, crucial elements of being a human being?
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's tragic and sad at the same time. I was listening to what Bokan was saying, that some of these things we bring about to ourselves as men. I remember one thing that I used to struggle with, and I think it's just because I've changed circles now, is the fact that my beard couldn't connect. And like that thing is I walk into a space, gentlemen are like, "Hey, can't you just shave that thing?" Or and you sit there, you're like, ha ha ha, but when you go home, you're like, damn it. And then when you're at Discam, you're like, which oil is it says grow, and those are like real pressures, you know. But I think ultimately, I think the important thing is to know what defines you, and what defines you is knowing yourself and being in contact with yourself. I think one of the things that I've always said that I need to do before the end of this year as a man is get a therapist for myself. You know, I think I don't think as men we get therapy as much as we need. Like I said before, communicating is not our strongest point, right? So I think we need to find mechanisms that will help us come in contact with who we are and actually know ourselves so that we can lead ourselves better. And I think therapy is one of those things. The pressures that we get outside, for me personally, I think they do get to us, and it would be a problem if we don't know what actually really defines us. Because if you take that, and then the gents were making fun of your beard not connecting at the streets, and then when you get home and your wife makes one more joke about it, you know, and it's a problem because and yes, and it's one of those things. It's just like, you don't know how many times I've been made fun of it. Other thing is shortness, you know. It's some of those things that you need to find a way that you can be able to bounce on those things, because they do. For me, I feel like as a human being, they do affect you, and they do go to the heart. But if you don't have that thing that you stand by, some of us is motivational talks, or some of us is the Bible scripture, what defines you. Some of us it's other things. So find that thing that defines you, that because I mean, society will always come. Society will always come with praise. I don't think society feels like they owe you flowers and what is this thing? Affirmations. I don't think society feels like they owe you any affirmation.
No.
Society will always be the way society wants to be, right? And I wish it could be more affirming, but unfortunately it's not. So I think just that thing that anchors you is very important to know what that is. But also as men, because we know our shortcomings in terms of communication, find a coach, find a therapist, so that you can have that space. Just before I close, because I love soccer so much, and I listened to Thierry Henry one day, and he says he excelled so much because he would play to his teammates' strength, right? And it's that thing that you know that this one struggles with this, so I have to run like this. This one struggled with this, I have to ask him to give me the ball on my feet. This one struggles with this, I have to not do 1, 2, 3. And as a person, you need to know that about yourself, that okay, one, I can't do this, so I need to find help here. This I can't do, I need to find help. This I can do, maybe let me help this person, and so on and so on. So I think that's very important as men to know. Once you know that, I think it's literally just 2 things that we need to know. It's not too much. I know they say we can't multitask, so it's literally just what anchors you, and where can you find help.
Yeah.
I
mean, those are very powerful points that you've mentioned there. Just really trying to simplify and bring it down to, very simple, the basis of what it means to be a man. We are almost wrapping up, and I want to just wrap up with with this. We've mentioned a little bit about the whole issue of brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just, for me personally, I mean, I grew up typically without my mother around, and both my father was also not around, and raised by my grandfather, who was totally overwhelmed by the fact that there were so many of us young cousins and they that he had to raise, and obviously then we had to raise ourselves. And so, as far as then having that example of a strong man, I mean, it was somebody from the corner here and there, and advice here and there. But when I got older, when I got into church especially, I met a pastor from the US who became a pastor for the last 26 years. But since then, also I've also found other men who I have great respect for, whose character I sort of admire, to mold me and to create that ecosystem of safety for me as a man, and to learn what it actually means to be a man beyond the physicality, beyond the success, beyond all of these other factors of intelligence and all the pressures that come with what it means to be a traditional man. And I'm just wondering, to what degree, as you've mentioned it, Sehlana, to what degree does, or should men be accountable to create ecosystems of accountability with other men that have succeeded in being good men and learn from them? You mentioned the issue of coaching, mentorship. In our church, in Christian talk about discipleship. Do you think that men should create ecosystems of accountability where there are other men that can call them to order?
Sure.
And what makes it hard for men? Let's make that name one question. Do you think they should, and what makes it hard for them? Because of time, let's try and answer the question in about two. What time are we supposed to finish? Oh, we have 15 minutes. Okay,
yes.
15 minutes. So let's try and be very brief, get through to it, because I want to close up with one question. Should men put themselves in accountable ecosystems with other men that they admire, that they respect? We can call them on their BS, and also not just BS in terms of you're acting up, but also when you're feeling sorry for yourself, and then you feel like a victim, and then because society wants you to perform, right? Society wants you to apply yourself, wants you to show up. Once they're going to judge you by the quality of your decisions, and then the quality of your decisions, you judge them by the quality of your outcomes. And unfortunately, quality of those outcomes is linked to the fact that there's got to be a degree of success with whatever activities that you apply yourself to. So over to you, Bokam.
I was hoping that 15 minutes will finish before you ask me difficult questions. I think on a matter of having accountability ecosystem, definitely. I think we do need that. I think personally, I like to think human beings, we like ants, we are dependent on each other, and we have strength in numbers. And sometimes it's not like the physical strength, it's a mental strength that we have to bring ourselves together to be able to support each other. I might be thinking that I have a big problem that is like a mountain that I cannot go over, but only to find out Setlane went over that not long time ago. And only to show me, you know what, don't stress yourself with 3 things that you ought to do to get to the right point. Already that's a solution for me. I think if you have those ecosystems, it reduces the burden of us banning each other from experience. We can be able to learn from each other. What is it that is good? What is it that is not actually the best way to go, and the impact of that by seeing from each other? I think that is the most important thing. That is why I think you're making a nice example about a church platform or a biker group. The fact that it creates those multiple people that can be able to talk each other, it creates that ecosystem of support that you are talking to. I think even at some point, just by being next to each other, we can provide that sort of positivity. You will see when you are sitting by yourself as a guy and then you kill yourself somewhere, that's where suicidal thoughts come into mind. That's where you start worrying. But if I can go there and say, you know what, let me go learn something about bikes and go around, then I realize, you know what, life is more important than that. Let me go to church. I realize, there's a lot of people that have more problems than myself. I get to open up on that because, we are human beings, and emotions activate some strange sort of chemicals on us. Considering the fact that this society that was created, it says, if you're a man, you're supposed to suppress your emotion and how you feel because you have to appear some sort of way. You can't cry, you can't do all of those sort of things. I think that burden on its own, if you lock yourself in a corner with all of those sort of pressures, that's where you find out. I was with somebody yesterday and I found out that they committed suicide. You could not understand to say, you know what, this man was okay the whole time. What is the problem with that? But with the ecosystem that you are talking about, you can be able to see, say, hey, Bokang, you look down today, what is happening? Then you will find out to say, hey, Mabara or something like that. Then somebody will, hey, they said I'm too short for their liking, Then we can be able to encourage each other to say, no, don't worry. There's some people that I know that like short people. You see, then you get to realize to say, no, you try to Google Sol Kestner's wife and you find out, no, she's Tolmos. Then you'll end up there being. But if you're going to keep yourself in a corner and be a one-man show, I think it's a big challenge that we as men keep to ourselves. We refuse to be able to share thoughts. We refuse to be able to share challenges. We want to be perfect. We want to succeed. We want to be better, not only than women, we want to be better than other men, which creates, and there's always going to be somebody better than you, somebody taller than you, somebody with a stronger voice, only that bass that you have, not the soprano that I have, those sort of people with then radio voices. There's always going to be something better than. But if we are together, we realize to say, you know what, our weaknesses can be strength on their own because they will allow another person to be able to assist us by building another man. You know, if you feel good, if you have assisted somebody without having any reward, I think it develops you to become more community and open up. So your weakness created an opportunity for somebody else to be able to be themselves. If you can be able to embrace that, it goes a little bit more forward on that. So yes, in a nutshell, we do need those accountability blocks. And in those blocks, it doesn't need to be groups where we brag, where we put ourselves in a situation. Now, because I'm in the biker, I want to come with a Ducati. I have to go on ridiculous debt. My children might not be able to go to school. The school funds is always overdue. And I have to go involve myself in criminal activity and so forth.
Ish.
We don't want those sort of gangs of boys. We want where we can be equal and try to account to each other and try to build each other. That is just my view.
Yeah. Jabu, if I may chip in.
Yes, please. Please.
You know, just give a quote that I read the other day by Thomas Fuller. He says that it takes two men to make one brother. So meaning it talks to exactly what you're saying, that we need to have those accountability groups with men for us to actually move forward. We can only rely on other men for us to be better. But that being said, also, it is important the circles that you choose to be in. The circles of brotherhood is not a circle of men. There's a difference. The circle of brotherhood is about respect, it's about understanding, it's about compassion, and it's about having the same vision of life so that you can actually encourage one another and help one another with your own talents, your own gifts, your own resources. But brotherhood is not something that must be taken lightly. Brotherhood is real. Brotherhood is when I'm in Limpopo and my car breaks down, I need to be able to pick up a phone and call a brother, even if that brother is not in Limpopo, but he can help me by connecting me with other brothers in Limpopo that can help me so that I don't sleep in the streets because of a breakdown. So brotherhood is true love, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
Make sure you're not in a circle where beards are together like ours. We'll just there's still centimeters there. I'll bring a ruler to say, Matsatlana, you still be at 5 centimeters. Can't you go to 4, my man?
I wanna know.
I'll give you something free just to bring them together.
Oh man, I hear that. I definitely hear that. Brotherhood is real, right? I mean, I think it's so important. And I think it's something maybe for us to talk about next time, like what prevents us from being brothers? Because I think it's a huge topic for me, especially in the corporate space. When I think about even my own career as a businessman, and I think about who has helped me to be where I am today. Unfortunately, not many who look like me, not many who sound like me, you know. And I think I wonder oftentimes what contributes to so many brothers finding it difficult. And I say finding it difficult because you'd sit down and then there'd be openness and willingness to help. But when it comes to really coming through for the brother, you find, oh, well, brothers are nowhere to be seen. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. I think it'll be important for us to talk about it. But just closing off the Setlana, What are you thinking? You've heard all this
Yeah.
wisdom. Now over to you.
I think Dr. Tejan said it very well. Brotherhood is not just about me. There's respect. Because you find a circle of brothers that are just doing nonsense out there in society, like people who are just pushing each other to weird things, and you like, how are you guys, 5 of you, and doing this? But I think that's for another day. To the accountability issue, I think it's very, very important. One of my favorite poems by Portia Nelson is, I walk down the street and there's a hole on the sidewalk and I fall in. I struggle to get out. It takes me long to get out. I finally get out. And if as men we are walking down sidewalks, we keep falling into holes and there's no one to help us, we will take long to get out. And when we get out, sometimes we are frustrated and we need that helping hand. Like again, that Tejana said, when you're in Polokwane, to be able to pick up a phone and call a man with a beard that connect and come to help you. But I think accountability is very important, so that in times of need you're able to call somebody. In times of your nonsense, somebody is able to say stop it. Because we do that a lot. When you're in a hole, the sad thing about being in a hole is that all you see is that situation, right? And you need someone to say, hey, there's a different way. Hey, you can do this differently. And I think that's what accountability is about. Just an all-rounder solution to some of the things that that we encounter as men. And I think we need to actually track down on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, it's been amazing. I think there is so much to talk about. There was even a question about how did you feel with this whole idea of men are trash, but I think we can cover that maybe next time. But from my side, just to wrap up, I mean, I've learned a lot from everybody. Talked about the importance of learning to really communicate from what we're concerned about and what is important to us. And really this whole notion that we have to renegotiate our societal contract, our covenant with society as men, to redefine who we are, what is important to us. And I think for me, having been a pastor for so long and having had the opportunity to be in so many different communities, 3 different continents, multiple countries, predominantly talking to men, and just sitting most of the time realizing that we are half of society. Contrary to belief, actually, scientifically speaking, it's actually almost 1-to-1 men to women ratio in the world. It's actually almost 1-to-1. And the reality is that men and men's voice are still as powerful as they've ever been. But unfortunately, a lot of us have withdrawn into our shells because we don't want to be targets. We don't want to be a moving target. And I believe that at some point, as we've been speaking today, it's important for us to learn from the failures of our society and also from our own failures as men at large. And you can't say, well, now I'm like this and I'm like that. I'm a man. I carry you, you carry me, you are me, I am you. We're part and parcel of the same thing. So, and this is important, I suppose, for the generations to come, for our sons that are coming up and for our daughters that are coming up, to have it more, live in a more harmonious society, especially for those who look like us with this skin color and the history that was part and parcel of us. So just quickly, I think we're done. If you just one statement closing and then we wrap it up.
Thank you, Jabu. I think for me, it starts with love. Men, let's love ourselves. Because if you don't love yourself, you cannot love another person. I always say this. For me, the beginning is love. Love manhood, love brotherhood, love yourself. Thank you.
Super. Love it. Lovely. Love manhood, love brotherhood, love yourself. Great. Okay.
Well, for me, there's nothing more powerful than that. I think technically, for me, I think first, love yourself. It's important to love yourself, because if you love yourself, first of all, you understand, you empathize, you survive yourself. I think the difficulty that we give ourselves is when we are not aligned, our dreams and our current situations, they're out of situation, we end up creating pressures on ourselves. So love yourself, love somebody next door, to care about them, another man, another woman, another anybody that is next to you. I think that on its own, there's nothing I can change about that. So love is love. That's it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Zehlana?
Yeah, yes, please love yourselves as men. And I think over and above, honor and respect. Honor and respect others, your peers, our women, our sisters, our colleagues, male, female, honor and respect. I think that brings much better perspective on how we interact as human beings. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for everybody that was tuning in. Remember to subscribe to get notifications about what's going to be coming up next from us this evening. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And gentlemen, have a great evening. Greetings to your family, greetings to your loved ones, and be safe out there.
Thank you.